Linda, thanks again for taking a few minutes to do this. I wanted to connect because there was a moment at the recent Sotheby's company collaboration at your Rancho Santa Fe listing that really stood out to me. You introduced the property in a very intentional way, and then later Michael Dreyfus actually referenced your presentation as an example of how a home at that level should be presented. It said a lot, and what stood out for me the most was that you didn't just describe the home, you used this very specific detail. You led with what made it rare, what made it significant, and why it would matter to the right buyer. So tell us a little bit about the property. What made it stand out for you?
I've been selling here in Rancho Santa Fe for a long time, so I really know the different locations. And I'm tired of reading the same old script.
Yes.
2 bedrooms, 5.5 baths, whatever. I mean, we can all read that. I also know that to get a buyer's attention today, you need to have something more unique because people aren't interested in reading. They want to get through pretty quickly, just like photos. Let's get a few photos, really good photos, but don't put 75 on the MLS.
Yes.
Because you're going to lose a buyer. What makes that particular property so special, number one, the magnitude of the lot, where it was located, and that it had a lot of history to it because Rancho Santa Fe Covenant has a lot of history. That lot is sitting next to the old Bing Crosby estate. Younger people today may not know who Bing Crosby was, but a lot of people do.
Yes. That was one of the things that I thought really was strong was the way that you framed it. This rare 5-acre plus parcel, if I'm not mistaken, in the Covenant and Bing Crosby connection, which really gave it weight and context.
And also, I am not one to talk. I like to make things short and sweet, even during my showings, because buyers at this particular level, they know what they're looking for.
Yes.
And if the house doesn't have enough bedrooms, they'll add them.
Right.
Right?
True. Yes. Why did you choose to lead there instead of the more traditional property details? And I know you and I talked about this offline, but I would like the listeners to understand the different approach and why it matters.
Because buyers in this level, I mean, we're talking a $10 million house, but it could be a $2 million house. Luxury buyers are looking for something special. Most of them want something that their neighbor doesn't have. And that's unique. I like unique properties. I like unique things. I don't like to be the same as everyone else in the pack. I like to look at a piece of property and pull out what I feel are the unique features.
Yeah, and you did that. And what Michael pointed out later, and I thought that was really sharp, is that you were presenting the opportunity, not just the house, right? Everybody leads with features, but you led with opportunity. And he even said you didn't talk about how big the rooms were or anything like that, right? You talked about what made the property rare and who that rarity would appeal to.
So the other thing about that property, you know, it's an equestrian property right now. However, I'm trying to market that to the masses. There may be somebody that has no interest in horses at all, but wants a party barn or is a car collector.
True.
So that's why the magnitude of that property also being over 5 acres in the Covenant. I mean, there's not that many properties in the Covenant over 5 acres. You would think there would be because it's so rural here, but there aren't. Everything's been subdivided.
That's a skill, right? So what's the process like in your mind when you're thinking about presenting a luxury property in a way that actually connects with the right buyer?
I'm pretty creative. That was part of my background when I was in college, is art. And so I try to go in with the creative mind, an open mind, something where a property is going to appeal to as many people as possible. Like, I don't sit there and dream up, how am I going to present this? It kind of just comes to me when I go on a listing presentation and I'm taking a tour. That's usually when I'm getting all my ideas.
Yeah, because you're in the element.
And I'm sharing them with the seller.
And you're getting feedback in the moment, actively listening, then adjusting as needed.
Yeah, exactly.
The seller can also help direct where there could be a potential buyer just by the questions you're asking and then the answers they're giving you.
Yes, for sure. So it's kind of interesting because for this particular property, since it is equestrian, I am the second agent on this listing. The first agent purely was an equestrian, and I think it missed the boat. I had another large property that I sold last year, and that property, it was an unbelievable barn.
Mhm.
And I had artists look at the house. I had car collectors look at the house because that's what I was marketing it to. I was marketing it to just about anyone that needed a large structure, had a collection of something.
We talk about niche and we talk about, the masses. How do you balance the two, right? There's got to be a skill and art to that as well.
I have to tell you, I think I'm just kind of open-minded with the whole thing. I've been doing it for so long, and I also have an instinct about what people are looking for. Every Saturday, we have a big car show here in the village. And so I know there are a lot of car collectors.
Right.
So large properties, you can put some good structures on them for, their cars.
Right.
I mean, some of these cars live better than people.
That's very true. Well, it goes back to you're presenting the opportunity, not the structure necessarily as it is. So because the opportunity can be bigger than the present shape of the home or how the home lives currently.
You want the property to have potential to be something bigger and better so that buyer actually over the years creates value for themselves. Yeah, it might seem like it's a lot of money right this moment, but if you add so much value to it, the sky's the limit, especially in an area like Rancho.
You talked about you walk through the property with the seller and you ask questions and there you kind of start to mold and create the vision you have for the property. I think that's such an important distinction because the way a property is talked about really shapes how it's perceived. You're in a way creating the narrative before the narrative is created by the marketplace.
Exactly. And I like to share it with the seller because they may never have thought of something that I'm throwing out there. But, today you've got to open these properties up to the masses, right? To a variety of different people that have different interests. If I only focus on equestrians, I'm taking a very small piece of the pie.
That makes sense. You're looking through, what's the word? Very short-sighted perspective on what the property could be. And you're limiting the property before you're letting anybody look at the opportunity or, like you said, potential.
Exactly. Plus, it's just a great location because of where it is, close to the coast, close to getting into town, to the school, and it being 5 flat acres. I mean, that is enormous, having all that acreage and it's flat. And being buffered by so many other larger historic properties.
And you have to stand out amongst those properties, right?
Exactly.
And you believe each property has its own unique story and opportunity.
Oh, for sure. Every lot is unique. Every house is unique. I mean, it's hard to comp these houses out. And it's hard to price them just because of that. Comps are difficult. You're never going to find 2 lots the same. You're never going to find 2 houses the same in Rancho, especially the Covenant.
Which is a double-edged sword, right? Because then it's more difficult to actually price, but then it's very unique in that sense that there's nothing like it.
Right. And it's going to take a very specific person. And I've always said that these unique homes and these custom homes, they usually take longer to sell because they are unique and they are custom. And most people like vanilla for a reason.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, I want to come back to it real quick, is that you talked about like, I walk onto the property, I'm talking to the seller, and due to your creative background, there's these instinctual tendencies, right? So I also think these instincts usually come from somewhere. They're not random. So have you always had that instinct for seeing the bigger story in a property?
I've always had that. I think it also comes with my creative mind. So I also have a financial mind. So I've kind of got the best of both worlds, the financial side and the creative side, which work, I think, really well together. But I've always been like that. Look beyond what you're actually seeing. It's probably I think it's just in my nature that I have that.
Well, that's very unique. Not everybody can do that. That's a great balancing act of both right brain and left brain.
Believe me, I've been fortunate. I ran companies before I got into real estate. And then I got into real estate because I liked the creativity of it.
How do you cultivate or foster both sides, those different perspectives of who you are?
For me, for the transaction, when I'm in the actual transaction, doing the contract, and I do my own, I do everything myself because I like that. People are like, how do you keep everything straight? I feel like I have these file cabinets that are in my head and everything goes into a specific file cabinet. And then I get to do my creative stuff, which is the fun part. I love art. I love creativity. I love houses. I love interior design. I love clothing. I love all that.
I love the discipline and the whole mindset. That's a whole nother conversation that we can have later because now you got me hooked on that, like how you've been able to discipline both sides, both left brain, right brain, and do a great job with both. I've seen how you brand yourself as well as how you articulate yourself on stage and as well as obviously doing well on the paperwork side and the logistics and all that. Where did that discipline come from?
I think it came from just how I was trained and growing up. with, a very strict father. I think that's where the discipline came from. It was my dad that really trained me to get into accounting and do a good job in accounting, which I did, but I didn't love it. And that's why I changed my career 30 years ago into real estate, because I wanted something that I loved and I was passionate about.
You could look back and be like, man, I wasted my time, but now you're using it to add value to your current business and what you're currently doing, the art, the creative, as well as the logical side where you're focusing more on the structure and the numbers and all that.
And negotiation. Sometimes we're on a $4 million house, we're $5,000 apart. Well, let's everybody stand back and let's look at the big picture. And is that $4,000 going to, Mr. Seller, ruin your entire life? Is it going to change your life? And most of the times they look at me like I'm crazy. No. Well, then forget about the $4,000 and put the deal together, because owning the house may change your life.
Yes. I love that. Definitely want to continue that conversation. If we can go back where Michael was talking and I heard him mention you as an example later in the meeting, what did you feel when you heard that?
I was surprised. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I was really surprised. I was like, wow, guess I didn't really realize. That's just the way I've always presented properties, etc.
Did that affirm something you already believed about your approach?
It did, especially coming from him. I mean, I've totally looked up to him. I know he's a big producer and well respected in the Bay Area. I know that. Honestly, I was kind of flattered.
Of course.
I really was. I was flattered.
Yes.
Like, wow.
Rightfully so. Yeah. Did anything specific resonate with you?
The way he said, you're very distinct. You didn't even say that much. But the things that you said for presentation were like the items that would get a buyer's of this magnitude's attention. And that's what you're trying to do.
So I was listening, and when he said that, I was like, that's so true. When you had said it, I didn't think anything of it, but then he magnified that moment, and I was like, wow, that is powerful. The way you presented the property was different, was very intentional, and it was great because it brought that to my attention. And I was like, I got to talk to Linda afterwards because I want to know where this came from. There was an origin there. There's a story there. So that's beautiful. And I think there's a real takeaway here, not just for the sellers and the buyers, but for agents too, right? So if you had to give one piece of advice to an agent trying to present, or rather better present, a luxury home, what would you say?
Talk less. I am not kidding. And I want to tell agents to do that during showings. Talk less. Because when people talk too much, people that are listening can't even think. I mean, at least I can't. It's like too much. It's too much at once. Talk less. Give out the most important pieces of information. The rest of it you can find yourself.
So go in, be all ears. Is there anything they should start paying attention to more?
What the possibilities are for certain properties. Buyers come in and they always come up with an excuse of why this house isn't going to work for them. Well, there's not a bedroom close to the master. However, there's an office close to the master. Okay, so the office can be, a nursery or whatever. Come up with some creative ideas. And you have to do it right then and there when you're showing the property, because buyers always have objections. There's never a perfect house for anyone.
Is that psychology there behind the buyer? They're almost trying to negotiate themselves out of trying to buy the home, or are they trying to grasp at some potential negotiation weight?
They want what they want. They're not thinking through how you can be creative with certain property and floor plans, etc. Like a master closet. The master closet, I don't care how big a master closet is, they're never big enough. So you better figure that out, especially in some of these high-end homes, what a woman is going to do with her clothes and shoes and handbags, because that's going to be a problem. I think what you have to do is you have to just think ahead, understand the property, walk it, and know what kind of a tour you're going to give a buyer. But you got to do some homework. You can't just wing it.
I love
Some
that.
people think you can wing it. You can't just wing it.
Right. One more question here we can wrap up. To anyone who's listening, is there anything that you would leave them with, anything that would help them to continue the pursuit of selling at the level that you're selling properties?
Take it seriously, do your homework, and think about the property and all the attributes it has before you even have a showing, so that you know how you can talk about it. And I'm not talking about here 4 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. I'm talking about the other aspects of the property and why that particular property is so special. Every property has a history and a story. You have to figure it out.
Linda, I appreciate you taking the time. I promised you 15. You're giving me 20. I appreciate that. I thought that moment at the collaboration was such a good reminder. The best presentations don't just list facts. They create meaning, context, and connection. And it was great getting to hear more of how you think about that. And I'd love to continue this at another time. Thanks again for being here with me.
Thank you. And feel free to get in touch with me anytime.
Thank you so much, Linda.
You're welcome.